In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues, depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Journey on My Mind. I'm Dave Verhaagen. I'm a psychologist, and to my right is Dr. Lauren King, not to be confused with Dr. Martin Luther King. We found that out last podcast.
Yeah.
And tell us about you, Lauren.
I'm a psychologist, and I have 2 kids, and I love Harry Potter.
There you go. That's very succinct.
That's
right on it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
And Sam Barnhart
Yeah.
to my left.
Yeah.
You are known and loved by all.
Well,
but tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm one of the pastors here at Journey, and I have 3 kids, 2 adult kids, and 1 young kid still, 12-year-old. So
A young
we're
youngster.
just in the middle of it all. It's just
So tell us one thing this summer that is either going to be fun
Yeah.
or going to be make you crazy or
Yeah.
something. Just one thing for the summer.
here in a few weeks, we're gonna head to one of our favorite amusement parks that I grew up going to. It's right outside of Cincinnati. It's called Kings Island.
Oh yeah, I know it well.
Yeah, and so we literally the park that I grew up going to. So it's fun to take our kids back there. So that's one of the things we're gonna do.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Lauren?
Okay, mine's the pool, the neighborhood pool.
Yeah.
Love it
Yeah.
so much in the summer. I don't love the dirty Band-Aids on the side of the pool, but otherwise, very excited.
And there's
Have
a lot of those.
collection. Oh
It's
gosh,
just-
yeah, that's
There's
great.
something
Yeah.
about it. Like, I'm not easily disgusted.
It is
I'm-
disgusting.
But there's something about that I cannot take.
There's
And
somehow-
there's usually like a hair kind of around it. I don't know.
And somehow they always end up on you.
Yeah,
Somewhere. Like you get out of the pool. And, yeah.
This summer, it's going to be dirty Band-Aids and cicadas,
Cicadas.
all
Oh my
over the pool.
gosh.
The
That's
cicadas
just
are
gonna
gonna be
Have you seen the
terrible.
Saturday Night Live skit they did, the cicadas?
No.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
won't
I
spoil
did.
it. It's
Okay.
so good. You have
Okay.
to. It's hilarious.
You know, I got very existential this week because I walked outside and there was this big tree, and underneath it there were like dozens, hundreds of dead cicadas.
Yeah.
And the other ones are up there still going to town. I'm like, are any of them going like, this isn't going to work out well for us?
My
You know?
future is yeah.
I see
grim.
my future here.
Yeah. What
It's
about
pretty
you?
grim.
Yeah, Dave, what are you doing?
Couple fun things, but the biggie is I have a milestone birthday.
Yeah.
Okay.
30.
Yeah, that a boy.
This summer, and we have invited 12 couples to our house in the mountains.
Oh.
That is normally a vacation rental, and we're gonna take it over for a weekend and go tubing and hang out.
That'll
and
be fun.
It's gonna be super fun.
That's
So,
awesome.
my favorite thing. And before we go,
Yeah.
Sam, you have joined the cult.
I have, yes. Well, kind of. I'm adjacent
Cult adjacent.
from
Yeah. So Lauren and I are in this cult where we have the remarkable. I feel like we're doing an infomercial.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes your life. And then Sam.
Well, I was inspired by you guys, and Susie
Right.
got one, but mine is called the Kindle Scribe. It is a wonderful tool that has been a game changer.
Change your
for me.
life.
Oh my gosh, dude! Yeah.
So this is a little cult. So we'll work on the sort of the doctrine and all
Okay,
the
we'll have
the
that
weird
already.
beliefs that go with it.
the
But
Marcus Scribe.
we got a good starting point
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So
I think we're doing it.
We want to start today by talking about the idea of mindfulness. And we want to talk about what it is, what it's not, some of the controversies that have come up in Christian
Yeah.
spaces about it, and then why we're even wanting to talk about it. So, Lauren, I'll pitch it to you first. Tell me, what's your take on if you had to explain succinctly, what is mindfulness?
It's paying attention to the present moment on purpose without judging it.
How about that? That's very succinct.
Ditto.
So yeah, right. What she said.
What she said. Yeah.
Well, the thing that often happens is when you ask people what mindfulness is, they say it's meditation, and they think of it as synonymous with meditation. But what you described is not necessarily. It might include meditation, but it's not synonymous with that. Is that correct?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, mindfulness really is just paying attention to the present moment. It could be part of meditation.
So, Sam, do you, in your work or in your personal life, is this something that you do or have encountered, or is it part of your work in ministry?
Daily, yeah. I mean, I definitely, it's interesting because I've just, in the last probably couple of years, have been doing like some work around some traumas and things like that. And so I've spent a lot more time in like mindfulness and like, what am I, just in those processes, just trying to understand just what's happening right now, right here, you know, and it's been really helpful. So I think I do. I would say I think I do, and that's mindfulness, right? Yeah. No, I do. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm going to give a idea of how I think or why I think it works, and then you both can kind of add to that. So when Lauren's talking about mindfulness as being in the present moment without any judgment, you're like, well, so what? Like, what's a big deal about that? And there are tons of benefits, which we'll talk about in a bit. But here's why I think mindfulness works. And even before we say how it works or what it's doing, we'll talk about how it works.
Okay.
So if we go back in the day, our brains were developed to time travel. So we had this brain that could go backward in time and forward in time.
Yeah.
And that's how we became kind of like we're like we can outwit everybody.
Yeah.
Right. We might not be the biggest or strongest or fastest, but we have this brain that can do something different. And the thing it can do differently is we can go review the past and anticipate the future. So we could go, well, last time there were these saber-toothed tigers and they were over the hill, and next time we're going to come in from this angle. And so we had this ability to kind of go back and forward, and that worked great.
Yeah.
And it worked great when there was a world where there were a lot of predators and a lot of danger and a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
The problem is that now our brains are still inclined to do that. And we're always going to the past and we're going to the future. And when we go to the past, we typically don't go to the past in a like nostalgic way. We can, but we typically go like, wow, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I wonder if this person thought this, or I really messed up by this decision. And then we tend to get down from that.
Yeah.
When we go to the future, we tend to go, well, what about this? And is this the right person I should be with? And am I going to lose my job? And are we going to make ends meet financially? And that's all anxiety. So back here, we're getting down. Up here, we're getting anxious. Do you buy this so far?
Oh, yeah. Tons of overthinking.
Yeah, overthinking, but outside of the present moment.
Right, because there aren't so many physical threats to us. I mean, in the United States, certainly some people are struggling with that, but it's a lot of threats to your ego.
Yeah.
That you're constantly being sort of bombarded with.
Yeah.
So the antidote to that is to train your brain to be in the present moment. And when Lauren's talking about not judging it, what we mean by that is just noticing,
being okay,
right?
with
Not going like I have to make a decision about this thing or I have to evaluate this thing. I'm just being in the moment, noticing stuff. And we have all these natural occurring times of mindfulness, like if you're in a good conversation, you can be in a mindful place. If you're eating a good meal or at a concert or at a art gallery or all kinds of things where you're just in the present moment, you can go out to the beach or to the lake and be very mindful. But the practice of mindfulness is sort of bringing that into your daily life where you're intentionally doing it. And then that makes your brain kind of like, okay, we're good. We're here. So tons of benefits from that. Would you give us just a couple? I probably can come up with a list of a dozen benefits. But
definitely benefits for anxiety.
Yeah, big time.
Focus. Sleep.
Creativity. Performance. Mood, general well-being.
Yeah.
I mean, the research on this stuff is killer.
Yeah.
It is.
I think as when you asked like about, when you're asking us about mindfulness at the beginning, like it's interesting because I think that's what I'm leaning into more is I see myself in that place often, like because I'm sitting with people and, but to practice it, right, intentionally outside of that, I would say I probably don't do that as much as You know?
Right. And that's what we're talking about is this
Yeah.
intentional. Like there are lots of natural occurring times when we're mindful. Like we're probably in some ways, hopefully being a little mindful in this conversation if we're doing a good job. But there are lots of times when we do it, but when you really practice it deliberately, you bring it, it's kind of like going to the gym. It's the equivalent would be, there are plenty of times when you're lifting heavy things during the day.
Totally.
And that's great, but there are times when you're intentionally lifting heavy things that you're building muscle.
That makes a lot of sense.
So have all these benefits to it.
Yeah, and the research on it is so strong that a lot of schools now even build mindfulness practices into their day with children as part
cool.
of the learning process.
Yeah.
I feel like when psychologists realized how helpful this was, they oversaturated it a little bit. I'm going to tell you, there was about a 5-year period where I was like, I cannot go to one more conference where we mindfully eat seaweed or a piece of chocolate as a way to learn how to do it. I was like, I can't take it anymore.
I think I got it down.
I can't take it. And our practice makes fun of me because every time someone brings up mindfulness and staffing as a
Lauren's
potential, I'm
like,
like,
Oh gosh.
but it really does work. I mean, it really is so effective, and I make fun of it, but I use it in my own life all the time because I really struggle with overthinking and time traveling backward and forward and all the things I've got to do. And I'm always trying to sort of, not always, that's a lie, but
Often.
I sometimes try to escort myself back to the present moment and be there and not get frustrated with myself when that's not working well, right? Whether that's that I'm focusing on a conversation I'm trying to kind of have with God, whether that's driving, you know, or being with my kids.
That's interesting. It's so, because when we frame it up as a practice, there are definitely, I don't know that I've ever just intentionally gone, I'm going to practice mindfulness right now, you know, which is a great practice. I'm sure I should do that more. But I find myself in that space often, like in the car when I'm driving. You said that, and I'm like, yeah, that's, I feel like that's like often where I'm, you know, just trying to be very present with, and when we process in those moments, though, do we step outside of mindfulness? That's the tendency, huh?
Yeah, because this is not necessarily like doing the cognitive work about like trying to challenge a negative belief or anything. It's just being in the moment,
present,
observing, noticing, kind of, without any, with that part of your brain not really going like, I've got to critique something or evaluate something or figure out something. That part we're sort of trying to put on pause while we're just being
experience
in the moment. Lauren jokes that I don't know, these aren't your words, but I have like lizard brain because nothing makes me seemingly upset, right?
Yes. I don't know that I've ever seen you anxious. My mom is actually very frustrated by it, which we laugh about. She's like, I don't think Dave has an anxious bone in his body. It's like, it makes her angry.
It makes her
that
mad.
You're so calm.
Right.
That's hilarious.
I think because she's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and a big part of it, some of it's just my temperament, but a big part of that is that I do practice this.
Often.
You know, and the fun thing for me is if I'm with a client and we're doing that, I always get to ride the coattails of his practice because I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
So I do it a lot during the week. And the research, like you said, is humongous. There was a guy who was a cynic and doubted. He was like, this thing is being oversold.
Yeah.
So he did what's called a meta-analysis, which he took, I think there were 90 studies.
Wow.
And he pulled them together in a big stew statistically, and then he come up with a conclusion. And his conclusion was, this stuff works. And I'll give you, this is the study that really is the kicker for me.
Okay.
There was a study, and there probably have been others since then, where they had a group of people who were going to do mindfulness and a group of people who were going to do nothing. And they brought them all in. They did a scan. It's like a fMRI. It's an enhanced MRI where you can see activity and connectivity and all this stuff.
That's cool.
And after 6 weeks, they brought them all back and they scanned their brains again. And you could tell on the brain scan who had done it and who hadn't done it. Like it showed up
like
in terms of the wiring.
Yeah,
the wiring became different. It usually is about, 2 weeks you see a benefit, 4 weeks you see a bigger benefit, 6 weeks you see a really big benefit where apparently it shows up on a brain scan. I used to lead a group for young adult guys.
Yeah.
And we would have a 6-week group. And at the beginning, we would always do mindfulness as the first topic because I knew by the end, if we were doing it consistently, they'd see it.
Yeah.
And when I did the evaluations for the group, every single time, the first session was the highest rated because now they're seeing it,
wow.
right? They're seeing the benefit of it.
That's cool.
Fortune 500 companies have adopted it. I've got a contract with a professional sports league. We've had training on mindfulness for professional athletes that they've incorporated it.
Wow.
If you watch a game, you'll sometimes see a player on the side just looking down and they look like they're maybe sort of not paying attention or what. They're probably doing mindfulness practice.
Wow.
So there's a ton of benefit to it. So I think we've sold that.
Yeah.
So now let's get into the I don't want to say controversy because I don't want to make something stronger than it is, but some of the concerns about it. So what's your understanding of some of the concerns you've heard from a faith standpoint?
Yeah, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this too, just theologically what you've heard. But I think a lot of people think, oh, mindfulness is Buddhism, like it is that. Or if you begin doing it, it will empty your mind. It will lead you to these places you shouldn't go. Feels like many things we struggle with, very kind of fear-based around it. And I'm not saying there's not, that folks who feel like mindfulness is not the way to go, that they're wrong and I'm right. I don't, but I think, there's a lot of fear about it being born in sort of more Eastern thought than Western thought. Is that what you've heard in more theological circles?
Yeah, and especially like just even growing up in church, like meditation, which is something, we talk about scripture and stuff, but there was always a fear around like, well, because they'd separate out the, well, this is good meditation. This is because like, for instance, like they might say, you're emptying your mind of all the things. And then what spirit are you, if you empty your mind and your heart of all that, you're inviting it.
Right. Making yourself vulnerable.
You're avoid that another spirit could come and inhabit so it was just very fear-based. And, yeah.
And in practicing it yourself, is that what you've experienced, or would you say you'd describe it differently?
No, not at all, right? Like it's totally a 180 experience of that for me. So, and I know there's a distinction between meditation and mindfulness that you kind of talked about at the very beginning, but it's been I feel like it's been created intimacy in like my relationship with Jesus, but also in my relationship with like my family. And so just learning how to be very present in the moment has been amazing, so, and we're still learning it, right? We always, I think, are, but yeah.
And we were kind of growing up back in the day when this whole like new age movement
100%,
was like, that's the thing that's ruin the church. And
it was like infiltrating,
infiltrating the church. And this was sort of put into that kind of idea, is that this is part of that. This is like Buddhist thought and Eastern meditation and all this stuff. And so it got sort of contaminated with that.
But so did therapy.
Right. Everything.
I feel like those were all like all lumped together, I guess, if you could say that,
So it was all thought of as this, like, it's this subtle movement to infiltrate and steal people away from their faith. And
it was looking like, okay, that's not trusting God somehow, or it's like doing it on your own and trying to, so it just, it never made sense to me, even as a younger man, but that was the thinking.
Oh yeah, big time.
For sure.
So I think that's part of where that comes from. It's sort of, I would say that scare started in maybe the 1980s or so.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Maybe a little before, 1980s, and then
that's when I would remember it. Probably would be.
And
in
it
the
just,
80s.
All these books were coming out, all this stuff was coming out about it. So there are lots of people now that when you talk about meditation or mindfulness, it feels like you're talking about something that is actually a threat or an enemy to faith, right? Have you heard anything else about it that's like where people are concerned about it from a faith standpoint, or is that mostly what you've heard?
I think what you described is mostly what I've heard, that it's going to empty your mind, lead you to another religion, or to lean on yourself too much, or, have you focus more on this world than that world. Next, although mindfulness can also be mindful of a spiritual experience. So I want to hear other people's opinions, but I also feel like, how could God be upset about us just like paying attention to what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it is, right?
And here's the other argument for it, which is, as we've talked about here, rates of anxiety, depression, particularly among adolescents, particularly female adolescents. Oh, here comes the train,
man.
Here comes the train.
This
is one of the best features of the podcast.
That's right. You never know.
You never know
like,
when the train
on this episode.
Right.
Is it not predictable? You don't know when it's coming. It's always different times.
Yeah. Well, Edwin, you'd probably be the better judge of that because you're in here often. I'm usually somewhere else.
Yeah.
It is random. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So
back to mindfulness.
See that was
that was a
that makes our point.
Not mindfulness.
That makes our point, right?
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all these rates of anxiety, depression, all this stuff going on, and almost every serious thinker about this says that this guy is the culprit, or a big part of the pie, particularly social media. And what this is doing is it's constantly demanding our attention. It's pulling us out of the moment and into, oh, look, I just got I literally have 2 notifications since the last time I looked at it. Right. And then I've got to respond. I've got to think about, I've got to do this thing. Oh, what about the news headlines? What about social media? And so we're in this culture where we're highly distracted and consequently we're more anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
I don't want to put it all in that, but that's we're in a very distracted and distracting culture.
Yeah. I put for no other reason other than just friends on both sides of the political conversation. Like around 2016, I got off of social media. Least kind of some way.
Give me that, man.
But
that is
2018, all of it. Like I haven't been on social since 2018.
Look at you.
So great.
Good for you.
I will say that has been a game changer for me. I mean, for me, I'm not saying that's everyone, and I don't want to villainize, but I'm saying for me,
man,
yeah,
that's strong.
It's opened up mindfulness. It's why I talk about even the last few years of I think that's when I've really noticed and been aware of these things more.
So we're in this culture where we're getting pulled all over the place. You're doing the steps you took in 16 and 18 to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's probably incalculable how beneficial that's been.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I can get pulled so easy.
We all can.
But I recognize that in my, one of the things too would be like you'd open it up and like, 2 people quit following you. And I would be like bothered by that. And it's probably stupid bots.
This. Yeah.
But eventually it was enough that I was, I'd wake up and I'd be like, let me see how many followers. And it was just always keeping me in that future or behind. And
right. Like what did I say or do?
Yes. Did I make somebody mad
or what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. So part of the benefits of this is that it really speaks against the culture in a way that I think is very Christian thought oriented. I think this is it integrates very well with Christian belief and thought. But how do you respond to this idea that this is something that is a threat to faith? But on the other side of that, how could this be integrated with faith? That's a better way to ask it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are pulled, like Sam was saying, in so many different directions away from our purpose and our values as believers and to sort of what the world wants us to pay attention to, beauty, wealth, power. We're constantly being pulled away from that, right?
Yeah.
And I think I could see how mindfulness could allow us to always be coming back to what we really want to focus on as Christians, to that upside down kingdom stuff.
Yeah.
How about for you? What's the integration of this
with faith and mindfulness? Well, I think it is, again, Scripture talks about meditating on these things, and so I think it even as a command, I think we should be doing that. I think there's God, he knows his kids, right? And so I think the idea of, pausing and checking in with right now, and I don't see anything that would be damaging about that. Like I can't. It's always been confusing to me that why would it? So I think we can integrate it in our daily, whether it's in our moments of pause, just like you said, when you're driving or when we're with. we just have the opportunity to just slow down and really be present in the moment because we're being pulled from so many different directions. So I think it's a great practice.
So let's take people to a practical application of this and how to do it. I had a client not too long ago say, I've heard of mindfulness, I don't know how to do it, which again, I appreciate what he's saying, but it also implies there is one way to do it. And you can do mindfulness a lot of different ways. If you keep the idea of what Lauren said at the beginning, that mindfulness is really deliberately being in the present moment, paying attention to the present moment without any kind of judgment, evaluation, critique. You're turning that part off so that you can just notice.
Yeah.
Right. So how are ways that people can do this that might fit them? One way that a person might practice it would be the typical meditative practice, but that might not work for everybody. So any ideas about how this looks in practice for people, or could look?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of describing in your own mind, even just silently, what's happening externally outside of your body. So thoughts, emotions, sensations. So you're just sort of describing and observing. You can be walking while you're doing it. You can be driving. You can be eating. You can be freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just going, I'm having a thought that XYZ, right? I'm having a feeling that, ooh, my chest is on fire. I'm hot, sort of this in the moment kind of thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, if you're practicing mindfulness, you're not really trusting God. You're not leaning on God. You're using this other thing to get through a tough moment or to feel better. And I would say that it's not one or the other. It's not presenting itself in opposition to faith.
Yeah.
That it could be part of faith, part of a gift God's given us to be able to be in the moment.
Well, and I feel like those are oftentimes when I center back with the Spirit. If I'm always going, and then in those pause moments of like, okay, like I feel like it recenters me in even relationally with the Spirit.
Me too. I think the times when God's met me the clearest have been times what I would, in retrospect, describe as mindful periods. Right. Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts about what this might look like or how it might look? You've mentioned a couple for yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. Nothing comes to mind immediately, Dave, but
I would say I'd broaden out. You mentioned this about paying attention to different things. Sometimes, though, it's good just to pick one sense, right? If someone's like, I don't know what to pay attention to, just pick one. It could be what you're seeing. It could be what you're hearing. It could be what you're smelling, maybe, or tasting. But you could practice mindfulness just by sitting. And in my office, there's a painting of a dog. It's a Dalmatian getting its spots blown off by a fan. And it has brush strokes and all that. And so sometimes that's how we'll practice. Just notice the brush strokes, notice the color, notice the location, and just be quiet in it. And then for other people, it might be paying attention to sounds that you're hearing.
Can you, and then
you switch it up.
Because this is, I think, something I'm learning.
You can switch it up.
That's what. So you could switch. Like maybe I'm paying attention to what I'm seeing in the moment, but what am I feeling, or what am I hearing? Or okay, that's
I think anything that's happening in the moment, and it could be external, something that you're hearing, something you're seeing, and it could be something like Lauren was talking about, something that's internal, like, oh man, my chest feels tight.
Yeah. So I think about I use this quite a bit if I'm running late. Okay. I do not like running late.
Yeah.
But instead of going, oh, I'm going to be late, they're going to be disappointed, whatever. Going, oh, I'm sitting on Old Hickory Boulevard. The light's red. I can feel my chest beating. My face is hot. I'm worried about not getting there on time. I'm right here in this moment. Just sort of describing my steering wheel is smooth. I kind of hit all the senses, but you certainly could just focus on one. Okay. But it calms me. It brings me to this place of, I don't have to be overthinking the future too much.
Does it feel like it pulls you from that to like the right now? Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And so for some people, it's going to work better just to pick a sense and focus on it because their head ping pongs a little too much. And other people would be just, let's just notice all of it in parts. Like, let's notice what things feel like the steering wheel. Then let's notice our body and how my chest and my stomach feel. And now let's notice what I'm seeing. That's fine. So you can, and what you'll notice is if you practice it, there's some things that work better for you than others. I have some clients that they're like, I can't pay attention when it's just sound. But others, it's like, that's the only way I can pay attention. Yeah. So you have to pick what fits for you. The point that we're trying to make, though, is there's not one right way to do it. Just if you're within the kind of the idea of it, that you're practicing just being grounded in the moment, then that's going to get you what we're talking about. The other thing I will tell you is the analogy of working out is really strong, because if you do this every once in a while, like if you're running late and you're at the light and you're kind of noticing, great, that helps you for that moment.
Right.
But if you want to see some of the benefits we're talking about related to performance and creativity and sort of bodily well-being and lower anxiety, all that stuff, you really need to practice it. Just like if you went to the gym once when you're stressed out.
It's intentional.
Yeah, it was like if you go to the gym if you're stressed out and afterwards you're like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
But you don't go, then you have one benefit, but you don't have all the others.
Right.
And this is the same thing. You could practice it one time and have an immediate benefit, but not the long term. But if you regularly practice, if it's built into your life, even 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
That's what I was going to ask. What does that look like for somebody?
It could be 8 minutes a day. And if you're doing that, then over time, and we're not talking about months, we're talking about 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
Okay,
you'll start seeing the benefits of it.
Okay, so it's not. It doesn't take that long to start to see the benefits of mindfulness.
Right. But it needs to be somewhat consistent. You can miss a day here or there, just like the gym.
Sure.
But if you got
to be intentional.
You need to be intentional, right? And it doesn't matter when you do it. You could do it before you go to bed. You could do it in the morning. You could do it in the middle of the day. You could do it twice a day.
Yeah.
But you'll get a lot of benefits from that. But
do it. Yeah.
That's it.
That's awesome.
I think we got it.
Good deal.
Thank you, guys.
Good deal.
Thanks.
Sam,
Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
This has been another episode of Journey on My Mind. We'll see you next time.
Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer, with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you'd like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.